Hello everybody, my name's Nicola and welcome back to the Frugal Cottage, where I talk about budgeting, money saving, investing and lots of different financial things to help you on your financial journey. Now today I'm going to show you how I close out my budget at the end of the month and reflect on how April has gone in terms of our spending in another month where we are in lockdown. So this front page here will not be new to you if you've watched my videos before. This is our calendar overview of the bills we have. I have ordered an internet sticker and also a phone bill sticker because I do have those two as well. I like the visual representation of that. It would be handy if I could get things moved also they're on the first, but this way I can see just where they are and then nothing comes as a surprise. I'll leave a link below to my May 2020 budget setup if you want to watch that for some ideas. And while you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll move on. So this is a monthly budget. I tend to fill this in afterwards. That's just because I don't feel comfortable sharing our income. We don't earn a lot. And I don't want that to put people off in terms of their own budget. Your budget has to work for you. The most things that I talk about here are the variable expenses. So that's the monthly overview. Obviously you would fill this in and then you here at the bottom it says income minus actual expenses equals. So then at the end of the month you can see if you are within your budget or not. So I thankfully don't need to use the debt repayment plan page. It's there if you've got things like credit cards or loans just to track. I need to use that as sinking funds. I've not put any in sinking funds at all this month. I spoke about this in a previous video about how I just don't see the point of having them at the moment, because they're saving for things that, I mean, maybe apart from Christmas, maybe I should still be doing that one, but they're saving for things that still feel like we can't plan for. So any kind of spare money at the moment is just going into our emergency fund rather than the sinking funds. That might change next month, but we'll see. So the first thing to talk about is my April no spend day tracker. My target was 20, and I explained again probably in the May 2020 budget video that I'm counting the days that my husband gets any kind of food shopping in as a spend day, even though it's not me, because under normal circumstances it would be me getting the food shop. That's why, because it might seem weird that it's 20 rather than 30, because in theory I'm not leaving the house and therefore not spending any money, although obviously there's online. But that's the reason why it's 20, and as you can see by that I have managed to get 20 in total, the 20th one being today, so I've just made it there. It's weird in the sense that it's not me spending money, but it seems like the first way to do that, and I have been tempted quite a few times towards the end of the month to be tempted by spending things online. And in fact I think it was maybe Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember, I ordered myself some more stickers from my favourite sticker shop. I talk about those all the time, so that will come in the post at some point. But it's the longer you go without spending money, the weirder it gets. I'm kind of setting up a pot, talking to sinking funds that I'm not doing, a pot for like smaller independent businesses that I follow on Instagram. Once they're reopened, I want to order like a couple of things from a couple of shops, just to kind of get them going again. I think there's a lot of smaller shops that will really struggle if this is a prolonged like month after month of being closed. So I am thinking about that in terms of moving ahead. But in terms of no spend days, that's what that looks like. And I say this every time I talk about no spend days to anybody, but the act of tracking the days you spend on versus the days you don't does actually give you quite a lot of information. So if you can see from this one, we obviously spend on weekend days much more often, and when I'm doing it normally Wednesday or Thursday seems to be, as you can see here, a day that we spend on. Tuesdays maybe not so much, Mondays generally not. But the act of knowing when you don't, like when you spend or when you don't, does give you lots of information. Maybe you do certain things on certain days and therefore that's always going to be a spend day. Or maybe there's certain kind of habits you've got into that could be kind of looked at and thought about, if that makes sense. But yeah, I find no spend days really helpful. I know some people don't like them, but I do. The next page is my expense tracker, and as you can see, there's a couple of things to talk about, but as you can see, I've got to the end of the month and I've not turned over, I've not gone onto a second page on my expense tracker. And did I manage that in January? I think I might have managed that in January. Oh no, I didn't even manage that, so I haven't managed that ever until this month, and that just shows, I guess, a silver lining to doing this budget thing. Whilst in lockdown means that you don't spend as much. I'm going to confess, so on the, when was it? It must have been like what did I spend at the weekend? I said we got a takeaway, and then like 2 days later we then got a Domino's delivery, so I don't really know what's happened at the end of the month. I think, I just think, because if you know that we're trying to do a no spend year, and I'll leave a link to the video below for that. I don't know what happened, I just felt, you know, you just feel out of sorts, I suppose, and yeah. So we spent, and Domino's is not cheap either, so we got like a family deal, so there's 2 adults and 2 children in the house, and we got the family deal plus the cookies, because let's be honest, they're the best thing ever, and £32.79, so I'd spoken before about how that £29 on a takeaway seemed like a lot, and then 2 days later we got Domino's, which is £32. Yeah, I don't know what's happening to my brain. I said to my husband the other day, I was like, if we're in this for the long term, I genuinely don't know what kind of state I'll be in by the time we get back out. I probably shouldn't joke about that either, but there we go. You've got to take the rough with the smooth, so to speak. But in terms of expenses, I've stayed on one page, which is good. You can see the majority of this is either food or miscellaneous. We've only had one spend of petrol this month. That's just because we're not using the car hardly at all. My husband is using it to go to work, and that is it. I'm not using it for the school run. I'm not using it for me to go to work. And you know, that clearly, as you can see, that makes a massive difference in terms of petrol spend, which again is a bonus to this situation. So I'll turn over, so 2 pages of expense trackers not used. I mean, that's good. So the weekly check-in, so I always find it really useful to check in at the end of the week, see what you've spent in terms of your variable expenses, so the things that kind of are interchangeable, and to see how much you've got remaining. The only downside to that is if you get to like week 3 in your budget and you're really close to the wire and you've still got another 2 weeks to go, then you'll know you're going to go over your budget, but you can kind of try and rein it in and try to limit how much you go over, if that makes sense. So weekly check-ins are always really helpful. I will talk more about the end result in a second, but that's what ours looks like for April. I think that's a really useful exercise to do, and it just keeps you in the mind of kind of sticking to a budget in the loosest sense. Now obviously at the moment things are slightly more up in the air anyway, but budget wise it's always useful to know where you are and if you are on track. So I'll turn over, don't use the bill tracker. Extra income, I talked about this the other day. I've not done any kind of selling or anything probably for a couple of months now. I don't know how comfortable I feel about that at the moment. I know there are lots of people online who are still selling things and who are still in like reselling businesses and stuff and posting things from home, but at the moment I'm just letting that sit there and not really do anything. The plan at the beginning of the year was to do like sell things online and use the extra income that's on this page and put them in the sinking funds. That was the plan, but obviously it's all gone out the window slightly, and I don't know when that will get back to normal, so to speak, but we'll see. I'm hoping by the end of like next month, so the end of May, we'll be maybe in a better position. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. But that's empty as well. Then my savings aim for April was £700. It's going to be the same every month. I have a target every year, and kind of our journey mapped out as to what we need to reach at certain stages. So the £700 a month savings aim is the same. And as you can see at the bottom there, target is definitely met. We, us as a household, because this is all household wise, we combine our finances. We've combined them since day one. We've saved £876.45, and that's a mixture of investments and emergency fund. That is such a big chunk of our household income, can't even say it. Such a big chunk of our household income. That combined with the mortgage overpayment that we've managed to do this month as well is like seriously a massive chunk. We really don't earn a lot of money as a household, and the only reason that we're able to do this is by prioritising spending in other areas. So nice and coloured in. I'm happy with that. And then the reflection page. So this in some ways is the most important page of your budget planner, of your kind of your financial plan, so to speak. This is looking back at, did you manage to do what you set out to do? Have you gone over in any areas? And things to do differently in the month ahead. So thinking ahead about what things might be happening, what things might you want to change. Just a bit of self-reflection on how your own spending habits are going. This used to always be filled in a lot more, but I'm kind of getting to the stage where so much of our financial life is like routine. It's kind of ingrained. It's just you do it without thinking, and that's just through practice. Now this doesn't have as much on, but if you look there, so you can see the food budget there. I already put the food budget up to £300, which feels like a lot for a family, for our family anyway. And you can see that we ended up spending £355.08. If we'd not got those two takeaways, we would have been under, I think, just, had we? Would we? Yeah, we would have been under. So if I'd not succumbed to those two takeaways, we would have been under budget. But we did get those, and I counted those in our food budget, and there's not much else to say about that. And that's the only reason why I've written this. So things to do differently in May is no takeaways, which again, going back to our no spend year, was one of the things we weren't going to do anyway. That was before I'd been in my house for over a month. But petrol, we budgeted £100. We only spent £30 in petrol. We've only filled the car at once. So £70 left over in that budget, which is fab. Miscellaneous, so household things, the cat things. Always budgeted £100 for this. The only time that changes is in like November and December when we're buying other stuff. But we spent £57.78 in the miscellaneous category, so that leaves £42.22 left over. And then the children's budget, again, they're always budgeted £100. My children are really young, they're 4 and 2. Their budget might seem a bit small, but you know, and as you can see, we've spent zero, and that's because we've not been anywhere and done anything. Normally, there'd be things like gymnastics fees, if nothing else. We'd have probably gone to soft play at some point, we might have gone swimming, you know. All those things would come out of the children's budget normally, but because we are literally just at home, I have not spent anything out of their budget, because obviously food comes under food, and miscellaneous, so things like wipes, nappies, that kind of thing goes under the miscellaneous. So children's budget is not being touched. The reason why this is useful is I can see that food spend is going to be the one to watch for May, and the others are just ticking along nicely. And the reason why we were able to save so much extra this month, as you can tell, is because we've been under budget in 3 out of the 4 categories that I'm tracking. And that has a knock-on effect on what you're able to do in other areas of your financial life. So moving on to, if I just pop this here. So at the start of the month, I always set myself new aims. They are both financial and kind of personal, I suppose you say. So my April aim, so 20 no spend days, tick, I got that. I managed to get 20 just. 185 mortgage overpayments. So I've not really talked about mortgage overpayments in a lot of detail. Basically, the £185 number is essentially what the interest added on each month is on our mortgage. So at least when we do our kind of mortgage on the first of the month, it's going to reduce in the number rather than paying off some of the interest, if that makes sense. I have actually managed to overpay, what was it, like £290 this month or something, again because we're just not spending in other areas. So again, way over budget there, but in a good way this time. It's reducing our mortgage. Part of our early retirement plan is to retire early but with no mortgage as well, so we need to do kind of the investment and overpayments in conjunction with each other so that we get to that point around the same time. And £700, I've already said that we saved, what was the number, 876, so £700 went into my investment account, and then £176.45 went into our emergency fund. Once I've calculated my side hustle income, which is not a lot in April, I must admit, I'll put any of that into the emergency fund as well, although I don't think there's very much this month, really don't. And then the only personal aim I did for April is just to take each day as it comes, and that was because it's such a weird circumstance and it's so out of our normal routine that I didn't want to kind of put any pressure on myself to do anything else other than be at home with my children and survive, thrive, enjoy, I don't know, however you want to word that, with them. And actually I think on the whole I very much managed to take each day as it comes. We've settled into a different routine. I say routine really loosely, it's not, we're not doing things at a certain time on a certain day, but it's quite nice to have a slow kind of leisurely breakfast time and not having to rush to get out the door by 7:15. It's choosing to kind of, well, what are we going to look at today in terms of schoolwork, and again that term is quite loosely used for my 4-year-old. And we've been going out in the garden, we've been on walks, but to be honest it's really difficult because they both want to go in different directions, so it's easier just to stay and play in the garden where they are contained. But it is, there are definitely bonuses to being able to stay at home. I mean, my children have never spent so much time together ever, and it's really nice to sit and watch them interact and play together and just enjoy the time together. So we are definitely adjusting to this. I think once this is all over, it will be in some ways more difficult to adjust back to whatever it is, if that makes sense. But we'll see. But in terms of April aims, all of those, the 3 financial aims and the 1 personal aim I've met, I've done them all. And again, I can't remember the last time that happened, so obviously there are some bonuses to staying at home. So that's how you close out your budget. You look and reflect and see what's gone wrong and see what's gone right. Hopefully more things will have gone right than gone wrong, as mine have. And then the next thing to do is, if you haven't already, is to set up your May budget for the next month ahead. Like I said, I've already done mine, so I'll leave the link below to that in the description box. But I hope you're staying safe at home. I hope you're enjoying the new normal if you can. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you again very soon.